right. Thank you all so much for being here today. Each of your presence in this space is important, and we're so excited you're here. We can't wait to hear your thoughts and your what this chapter means to you. So I'm excited. Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you so much for being here today, for being our reader. And Tanya only speaks highly of you, so I'm very happy to have you here. We are diving into Weber State today. I grew up partly in Salt Lake City, so I know exactly where Weber State is. Some of my friends went up there. And it's such a treat, Nikki, to have you here and read for us today. And please let us know your thoughts after. We're going to ask you if you have some thoughts. So keep that in mind as you read. If something comes up for you, we would love to hear it. Thank you. This event is a co-created space for a deeper experience into the Book of Being and to further explore being in community. As we begin today, please share in the chat your favorite year in school. Now that can be second grade, third grade, that could be my last year of my doctorate, like wherever you are at. I'll just share mine while I'm here. I loved third grade. My teacher made us put our heads down after lunch, and she read to us the whole Little House on the Prairie series that year, as far as she could get. And I reread that series hundreds of times in my childhood because of her, and became a reader. So let's see, junior high, let's see. Let's see, anybody else? You have a favorite year from school? Grade 2, Mrs. Guy, love it. Isn't it funny how they're both elementary, 9th and 10th grade? Awesome. Oh, she championed you. That's awesome, Andrea, to have that teacher you can remember from second grade. Awesome. My teacher in third grade also read that book. Awesome, Kathleen. That's awesome. Second grade, Anne-Marie, second grade with Miss Markey. Last year, year 13 here in the UK. Excellent. Very, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I do think it's interesting that a lot of that is elementary school in those like formative years, which is why we're here reading at the book club, right? Because those wonderful teachers really taught us to love, to read, and to enrich our lives through that. So anyways, thank you to the teachers, right? All right, thank you so much. We want to take a minute to just acknowledge every one of you for being here today. I know I said it at the beginning, but I also want you to know that every time you come here, I get really excited. I know the other Team Tuck people do too, because I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about this book. It's important to me. It helps me to think. It helps my brain to think in different ways that it wouldn't go. So please share, and please, and thank you so much for being here and being willing. Let's see what else we have. If you have some acknowledgements for people, which we all do, right? We all have those people we love. This platform here is to share about you, about your experience of the book. So if you have acknowledgements for somebody, maybe you could direct message them or even give them a call and tell them how much you love and appreciate them. But this space here, we would like you to share about you, about your experience of the book and of your thoughts on this book. We request that when you read about you. And when you listen about you. And when it comes time to share about you. As is so beautifully stated by Byron Katie, as we all experience about everyone else is the idea that we have of them. Please be aware that as you're sharing and you were to start to share from an idea of someone, not you, you may be lovingly guided back to share about you. And that is a loving guidance. Thank you. And so now I am going to pass it on to moderator 2, Miss Tanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate you. I would like to start off by acknowledging our incredible ultimate coach, author, Miss Amy Hardison. And I would also like to honor Mr. Alan D. Thompson for his incredible research that he did behind supporting this creation for the Ultimate Coach book. And boy, oh boy, do we have an incredible reader here today, Miss Nicole Sims. I had said in the chat, I have known Nicole for over 33 years, and it is truly an honor to have her here. And when she shared with me that this was her favorite chapter, I reached out to her and said, would you like to be our reader? And I can't wait for what she has to share with us today. But again, Nikki, thank you so much for who you be in the world. Thank you for who you be with your children. Thank you for the incredible impact that you have on all of the other children that you have the pleasure and the honor to be able to know and serve as you come across them. You're just such a beautiful person to me, and I want you to know that. So thank you for saying yes today.
Thank you.
And I want everybody else to know as well that the most important person in this room is you, and the opportunity that you have created for yourself to be here and be here now to listen, learn, and grow is truly an honor for you to, for me especially, but for you to create this space here, to be with us and listen, like as if you've never heard this chapter before, and to learn as a possibility, or hear or be present with an insight that it might create for you today like you didn't have before. So this is a great honor for us to be reading chapter 10 through The Ultimate Coach. So at this time, I would love to look for a reader for the back of the book and a reader for the Before You Begin by Steve Hardison. So if you have a book with you, if you'd like to hold it up and share that you've got a book. Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. So I would love to ask Amy. Amy, would you like to be our guest reader today for the back of the book? All right, wonderful, wonderful. And I would like to ask Kathleen. Kathleen, would you like to read the Before You Begin by Steve Hardison? Sure. Yes. Beautiful. Okay. So then the way that we'll flow this call is I would love for Amy to go ahead and start reading the back of the book, and then we'll flow right into Kathleen. And then Nikki, as soon as Kathleen is done reading the Before You Begin by Steve Hardison, you'll flow straight into your reading. Okay. Wonderful.
All right.
All right.
Can you hear
So
me all
Amy,
right?
yeah, I hear you wonderfully. Thank you for being here, Amy.
Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I vetoed that. The only testimonial I am interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Before You Begin. Steve Hardison. I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. And it's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So, with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, It's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being, and it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my life on a daily? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part of this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it is written about your being. Thank you for sharing some of your blessed heartbeats with me. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison.
Steve stepped into a furniture store in a little strip mall on Main Street in Clearfield. The owner, Jim Barlow, greeted him, hoping he was a customer. Hovering at the end of the aisle were Jim's mother and two other salespeople. The salespeople outnumbered customers 4-1. 4-1 is not a good ratio. 5-1 is worse, but Steve needed a job, something he could do after his morning classes at Weber State. Steve shared ideas with Jim on how to increase foot traffic and offered to work for 30 days on straight commission. At the end of 30 days, Jim could decide if he wanted to keep Steve. What was there to lose? Within days, Jim knew that he definitely wanted to keep Steve. He paid him $4.37 per hour plus commission. In an exceptional month, Steve brought home $800. In his downtime, Steve could do his homework. Jim notes that Steve had the perfect personality for sales. He was always upbeat, smiling, and happy. He wasn't the least bit inhibited, and he got along well with customers. He was fun to be around. Steve served his customers well, and no one figured out that he was actually colorblind, even after he helped them with their fabric choices. Not everyone who walked into the store walked out with a purchase. Sometimes they didn't find what they wanted. Sometimes the price was out of their budget. Steve saw an opportunity. Jim let Steve buy furniture at cost plus 10%. After Steve and Amy had been married about a year, Steve started buying things for their house at the employee rate, a little here and a little there. Sometimes Steve had a piece of furniture at his house that fit the needs of a customer, one who couldn't pay full price at Barlow's. Steve could sell it at a price that was affordable for the customer and profitable for him. Jim agreed. Later, when Amy was 8.5 months pregnant and couldn't sleep, she got out of bed. Steve asked her where she was going. "I'm going to rock in the rocking chair. Maybe that will help me fall back asleep." "You can't," Steve responded. "Remember, I sold it today." When it came time to pay their obstetrician for delivering their newborn, their firstborn, Steve worked out a trade in furniture. Weber State University. Steve and Amy went to school together year-round. Steve majored in business and communications, and Amy majored in English. Amy was always excited about what she was learning in her classes. She would talk most of the way home about this short story or that fascinating thing. When she asked Steve about his classes, he would say, "They were good." This became a pattern that would play out over and over throughout the years. Amy was excited about what she learned. Steve was excited about the people he met. Steve loved attending Weber State football games, football and basketball games, and the cost fit right into their budget, free. They rarely missed a game. One crisp autumn night, Steve and Amy attended a Weber State football game with Amy's sister and brother-in-law, Melinda and Gordon, who had come from Arizona to visit them. During the game, the announcer informed the fans that if they had a star on page 23 of their program, they could enter the halftime field goal contest. The prize was $250, a third of Steve's monthly income. Steve's program had a star. "This will be a piece of cake," Steve said to Jordan. "I kicked extra points in high school and junior high." Steve beelined it to the meeting point. As the first one there, he would get to kick first. The contest was structured so that the contestants started on the 35-yard line. If no one hit the field goal, they would move up 5 yards and kick again. This process would be repeated until someone kicked the football through the goalpost. However, the person directing the contest got confused and started them off at the 10-yard line. Steve was sure this would be the easiest $250 he ever earned. Steve lined up, approached the ball, connected. Off it flew towards the bleachers. He shanked it. After 1 year at Weber State, Amy was taking saltines with her to every class, hoping she wouldn't throw up before the class was over. Steve and Amy were going to become parents. The little pink house was cute, but very little. In a few months, it would be too small. Steve and Amy started looking for a new home. With their daytime hours packed with work and school, they did a fair share of tromping through the snow and peering into new builds with a flashlight at 10 p.m. Eventually, they found the perfect house about 5 miles west of Clearfield in Syracuse. A few months later, on Sunday morning, Amy kept looking out the front window. Steve had gone to a church meeting. He should have been home by now. All the other neighbors were home. Finally, Amy called her friend who lived across the street. "Rick, do you know where Steve is?" "Is it time?" Rick shouted. "It is." Minutes later, Rick was speeding to the church building to retrieve Steve. 10 minutes later, Steve was home. An hour later, they were a family of 3. Steve and Amy were besotted with Stephanie. When she was about 3 weeks old, Scott Parker, Steve's close friend and former mission companion, visited the Hardisons for the weekend. When Stephanie woke up at 2 a.m. to nurse, Steve took her into Scott's bedroom to show him how adorable she was. Scott was not all that impressed, not at 2 a.m. Stephanie conveniently arrived between the summer and fall quarters. Amy had 27 more credit hours until she got her bachelor's degree. This was decades before online classes existed. So Amy arranged with the professors to take some of her classes as home study. Others she took at night. Occasionally, she had to go to the campus to take a test. At that time, Steve took Stephanie with him to his class. He became known as the business guy with the baby. A diagnosis. When Stephanie was born, Amy's mom, Carol, flew to Utah to help her for a week. Before she returned to Arizona, she joked, "Well, I think Stephanie will make it through the night, but I don't know if Steve will." Steve was consuming an inordinate amount of food day and night. He was drinking gallons of liquid. His preferred beverage was milk, but that much milk stressed their budget, so he switched to Kool-Aid, and he was losing weight. Having dropped over 40 pounds, he was skeletal. He finally agreed to visit the Student Health Center. They sent him straight to the hospital. A glucose tolerance test revealed a blood sugar level of 832, 8 times that of a non-diabetic. Steve was diagnosed with juvenile onset type 1 diabetes. This was a life-changing diagnosis. Steve, who hates having anything slow him down, was now tethered to insulin and constant blood testing. Steve, who found eating a frustrating interruption and had often wished he could take a pill instead of having to stop and eat, now had to be mindful of meals and make sure he always had sugar with him. Steve, who had swings in mood, now had to manage swings in blood sugar. His life just got more complicated. Once Steve adjusted to life with diabetes, things returned to normal, AKA busy. He had a new daughter, a new house, and full schedule at Weber State. He was working nearly full time and had a time-consuming church calling. National Extemporaneous Speaking Competition. One day, when Steve was sitting in a business class, his professor announced a speaking competition sponsored by the business fraternity. Steve didn't think much about it until his professor pulled him aside and pressed him to sign up. Steve did, and he won first place in the extemporaneous speaking category and advanced to the state level. As a representative from Weber State, Steve would be going up against the winners from Brigham Young University, Utah State, University of Utah, and Southern Utah State. Steve didn't prep for the matchup, and he definitely didn't worry about it. Talking the birds out of the trees, what could be more fun? When Steve took second place for the state of Utah, he learned that the state winner went on to compete at the national level in Washington, D.C. in July. At that point, Steve started to realize that maybe this was a big deal. He also thought that he could have won the state competition if he had taken it more seriously. In hindsight, he knew exactly what he could have said that would have made the difference. Too little, too late. Except that the first place winner for Utah got sick right before the national competition. They called Steve. Off he flew to DC. The event started out with a Friday evening meet and greet. The room oozed with pomposity. It was cloying, Steve recalls. Everyone was flinging around who their mom and dad was. One guy made sure everyone knew his father was a US Senator. Steve's first thought was, this is a big deal. His second thought was, I'm winning the thing. The next day, Steve advanced through the 4 rounds of competition. He and 4 others moved on to the finals. The finalists were isolated in different rooms. 15 minutes before they were to speak, they were given the question, if there was one thing you could do to change the world, what would you do? Steve laughed. This is over. Steve had been thinking about this question his whole life. He thought about it in the shed. He grappled with it on his mission. He knew exactly what he was going to say. This is the essence of the concluding words of his speech. I would change all the sacred texts that teach the world must end with an Armageddon or something cataclysmic battle. I would change all the holy scripture that say one group of people has the truth and another doesn't. I would change what parents teach their children so that any teachings that divide and alienate people of different races, religions, and countries vanished overnight. In their place, I would insert the teaching that all people are equal. All people are valuable. When we come together to work for the common good of all people, we have community instead of separation. We have unity instead of divisiveness. We have love instead of hate. Steve won first place. It was a big deal. The phone rang. Amy picked up. It was Steve. Guess who is the National Extemporaneous Speaking Champion of 1980? Are you serious? You're not joking? Squealed Amy. Tell me more. Tell me all about it. Steve gave Amy the blow by blow. He recreated his winning speech. I'm so proud of you, Amy said. This is amazing. You are amazing. Congratulations. They reveled in his accomplishment. They reveled in his accomplishment, but not too long. Long distance phone calls are expensive. Amy hung up. She stared at the phone. That isn't what we believe. Is this going to be a big deal?
Excellent, Nikki. Thank you so much. What a beautiful reading. At this time, I'll just let you take a little break, have a sip of water, and we'll come back around to see what's present for you in just a moment. but I'd love to start off with Amy to ask Amy. Amy, is there anything particular present for you today? And thank you for reading the back of the book.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this is my first time through the book, but the part that really stuck out was when he was working in the furniture store, and he cared so much about the people that he wanted to find a solution for the people who needed furniture, that that he would sell them the furniture that he had bought, and even to the extent that he sold the rocking chair that his wife needed. And it kind of like the fact that it didn't happen to mention what her response was when she's like, hey, maybe that will help me fall asleep. And he's like, you can't get in that rocking chair. We don't have it. I think I would have been a little upset if I were her. And like, well, what am I going to do now, Steve? Like, I need to sleep. And then the next part where it said that Amy was excited about what she learned and Steve was excited about the people that he met, and just how people-centric he was and how serving he was. It's, I don't know, it's just amazing to me. And that's kind of been a theme, obviously, throughout the book, of just how much he cared about people. That's something that I'm trying to incorporate in my life, is just being in tune with people, and just really seeing and understanding what their needs are. So I would say that's what spoke to me from this chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. What a beautiful share. You know, I'm with you. I'm wondering why Amy didn't put in her response to, well, where's the rocking chair? That's funny. Thank you again for reading and for your beautiful share. Kathleen.
Yeah, what came to me, and it was kind of from the idea of Amy, because I always feel I just have such an interest in her, because, they say how steady she is. And that I was thinking that same thing with the rocking chair. Well, she'd probably just say, oh, okay, and find another chair or something, But in the last sentence where she said, that isn't what we believe. And just that idea of, Steve is going on, like what he said at the contest, and looking at, wow, that really isn't what we believe. And then it just kind of gave me this flashback. I remember I was raised Catholic, and I was in catechism. It was second grade, and the nuns were saying, if a baby is not baptized right away, they go to limbo, and I was like, really? Like, what if that baby's in Africa? They haven't even heard of Jesus. They don't even, like, there's no baptism anywhere. And like in second grade, like that, like Africa to me was like, way, way away, and I said, maybe they don't even know about it. Does that baby go to limbo? Like, they don't get to go to heaven. They're stuck in limbo. And she said, that's right. And I remember just questioning that, like, that just didn't seem right to me, and that's what kind of came up for me, that I think there's so much goodness in religion, but then sometimes, if you look at it a little more expansive, that you can take the solidness of the religion, but then create like a lot more love and beauty and acceptance of all people through it. And that's what I really loved about that chapter and how he responded in the contest.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. That's I love your perspective on that. I really do. I really do. Nikki, would you like to share with us now? What's present for you?
Sure. Yeah. So this particular chapter, several different things for me resonated and kind of stood out. One of the first things that I've read it now, as a matter of fact, I originally read it's maybe a month ago, and I actually reread the first 10 chapters again last night. It's funny, I told Tanya, I think I'm going to go back and read chapter 1 through 10. And that was like at 11 p.m. And so, and I was like, no, I'm going to go back and do it. So I literally went back and read chapters 1 through 10 again. And one of the things that really resonated with me is that, when I read it initially, the part that when he spoke and he did his speech, that part resonated at the moment when I read it, because my daughter, who is a part of way too many groups and leadership groups, was going to have to do a speech, or she thought she was going to have to do a speech. And I literally thought what he said was beautiful, especially in today's day and age, today's time. And I loved the fact of when he said, number one, when he said, teach your own, that the world must end, that it doesn't have to end with with an Armageddon. I more importantly really liked when he said, that he should, one group of people has the truth and another doesn't. I would change what parents teach their children so that any teachings that divide and alienate people of different races, religions, and countries vanished overnight. For today, that really resonated with me because I feel that's super true. Number one, I'm a firm believer in we're all the same people. We just may happen to be born someplace different, have different shades of skin, and we may definitely practice different religions, but we all can die from the same bullet. We can all die from the same cancer. We can all, nothing makes any one person any more, human or more special, or, my kids tease and I say, like, I'm never starstruck by anybody. It doesn't matter. Like, literally, they can, if a bullet came through right now, the same bullet would kill me the same way that it killed them. But there are things that make people good people, or maybe not so good people. So I really personally myself love that part, because I just think that it's true. We are all the same people. It doesn't matter about any of those extra things. I was going to think the religion may be different than mine, but it doesn't make me any better than you. And I kind of thought in that moment that if my daughter had to stand on stage and they had to ask her what she would change, I would want her to say exactly what he said. I want him to say to the world exactly what is on that paper, because the division that so many people are trying to make in this world today is where our problem lies. And instead of people realizing that we are all the same people. And so that part that resonated with me a lot. When I read it the second time, I still got that same feeling, but I also really realized that one of the biggest things throughout this chapter is partnership. And throughout the book, Amy supports him through and through. And I think as people, maybe we do, or maybe we don't realize it, people relish and do so well that all people need is one person that says, I believe in you. One person that says, you can do this. One person that says, you know what, that is amazing. And it made me think back to my own relationship, because my husband and I'm 48, and my husband and I have been together since I was 18. So we've been together a very long time. We have 4 kids. And sometimes when I think back, and, Tanya can attest, I'll never forget the day that I told her that I met my husband, and I said, she's like, who's this guy? I'm like, he's just this guy I met. It's not going to be. Number one, he has a kid. He had a daughter who was a year old, and he has a crazy baby's mama. That's what I said to her. There's no way we're dating long term. And lo and behold, here we are. But I can say that I've realized that not only for himself, but for myself, some of the biggest things that have made us who we are today is our support for one another. And Amy supports him through and through. Even though she questioned in the end, you know, that's not what we believe. Or she still said to him, that is great, congratulations. And I think for me, it really put into perspective just how big support and someone believing in you can be. Because as you continue to read through the book, it never ends for her. She continues to support him. And I think it's a part of what helped make him who he is that support system. So for me, the biggest thing besides the speech, which was super huge, it just said to me how important support and partnership is, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your parent, whether it's your best friend. I always say we all need that one person who believes in us and supports us through all of our different ups and downs in life. And that's what they were for each other. And that's what this chapter said to me. And I only spoke his truth and his belief and the equality and all of these other things, but it really showed me it spoke very highly of partnership and support for me. So that's what I took from it.
Wow, Nikki, thank you so much for your beautiful share. And thank you for your beautiful being. I love you.
I love you too.
I love everything you stand for.
Thank you.
I'm just going to leave it there for now. And I'd love to invite anyone else in the community. If you would like to share, we would love to hear your share. And please honor, this is an opportunity for you to share about you. Thank you. Anne-Marie.
Hi, good morning. I resonated in this chapter on several levels. The poverty, the resourcefulness that comes from it, the diabetes because it runs in our family and it does not skip a generation. It's what killed my mother from kidney failure from diabetes. Um, and the speech he gave. So I was so poor when I had my three children that I was like incredibly resourceful, making my own pancake syrup, my own pancake batter, making any birthday or Christmas present had to be made. I would say at that point, Christmas was a time that you spent money you didn't have on people you didn't know, buying them things they really didn't need. And so I would make these gifts for everybody. And and then I moved my children out into the mountains onto 157 acres of the wilderness where we ran a summer wilderness resort. And I was the emergency contact for anybody. And we had no phone, but we had phone reception on a good day, a half mile. And we'd have to have helicopters land on our property and save people's lives. But the resourceful part there was that we were the only people on the mountain who had a public shower. And it was $7 a shower. And if your children were shorter than the store counter at the general store counter, they were free. But what I realized was people were just waiting in line for the shower, sitting there waiting. I said, no, this is not going to happen because we're losing a lot of money in the bar. The line might be an hour long to get a shower in the mountains, and people really want to be clean. And so I set up an ice box with drinks, and I brought bagged popcorn from the bar, and I brought a walkie-talkie to the shower building so people can eat hamburgers and drink drinks and spend another $100 before they were ready to take their shower. I had time to clean it, squeegee it, and make it look all fresh, which was not happening at that kind of momentum of shower after shower after shower. And so that's how I became resourceful to make more money out of people who were already there to spend money on us to up our revenue, you know. So, but one of the most resourceful things I ever did when I lived in a McMansion that I couldn't afford with three children in tow and doing daycare, starting my husband's plumbing company. I was on a cul-de-sac and I was surrounded by really rich people, and we were only making like $2,800 a month as a family of 5, and my husband spent most of that commuting to get to work to earn it. And that was before taxes. And this is like in the 1990s. And my neighbor on one side was crossing my driveway with 2 prime rib bones from holiday dinner to give to the other neighbor's Rottweiler. And I took those bones and I made dinner for my family of 5 for 3 days off of 2 bones intended for a dog. Right. So I mean, like, I'm just so resonating with this, you know. There were times that I would cry buying a loaf of bread because I knew I couldn't pay for it. I put it on a credit card that I wasn't gonna pay and I couldn't feed my family. You know, and I just realized saying all this out loud that I really need to stop telling these stories and get rid of my lack mentality. But yeah, so and then with the speech part of it and the competition and like saying what's on your mind, and I feel and I know in my heart that I am made to be a great public speaker. um but I've been pushed out of my lane. I'm back in my lane now, so you're going to be seeing a lot of me coming up in the next year, speaking publicly, YouTube, etc. But my very first speech was at Catholic summer camp, and I was 8 years old. And my brothers, it was crafts day, and they said, you know, do crafts. And my brothers had gone to the Young Museum of Art in San Francisco for art classes. I was not the artist in my eyes. I didn't know that I am an artist if they're not in the room. That's the difference also. You are who you are when there's no comparison in the room. And so the counselor said, writing is an art. And I wrote a paper on women's lib. It was 1968. 1970, I was 8 years old. I got up to the podium. It came up to here. It was mass. It was 1,000 people, maybe hundreds of counselors, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children, and several clergy on the altar, because it would take like 7 or 8 priests to get that much communion out in that much time for that much people. And I got up, and the first words out of my mouth made everybody laugh at me. Everybody, even the clergy, because I hadn't taken sex ed yet. I was only 8. And I said, why can't men have babies? But the second sentence out of my mouth changed the Catholic Church. And that was, why can't girls be altar servers? Because it was women's lib and people were burning bras in San Francisco, and all of San Francisco smelled like marijuana and patchouli. I don't know. I love those smells. Anyway, and that was the first time they had altar servers on the altar of a Catholic mass in 1970. So, so that was very, very interesting for speaking. And the other thing about religion, I talk about generational trauma, and I do card readings, tarot card readings, and I tell people about your hero's journey and what you're here to do. And if you're born under the wrong rules and stuff. And actually, religion is generational karma. Okay. And it's unwittingly, unbeknownst doing it, but you have been born into a religion that was accepted by parents who accepted it from parents who accepted it from parents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now some people might be very, very Buddhist in their way of being, and then be born into a very constrictive, restrictive Christian religion where your marriage is defined for you. Or Nora, who's on our group, Nora Bontringer, she left an Amish. That's huge that she left an Amish religion. She was not of that being, and she felt out of sorts and actually walked away from her family and everything. And she speaks about that. And my father, this will be my last story and I'll be done. My father's from England, and he was getting old, and I always do his voice. He says, "Lass, before I die, I would love it if my great-grandson was baptized." And I said, "What religion?" And he said, "Well, Catholic, of course." And I said, "But his father isn't Catholic. Don't you think we should ask him?" And he says, "Well, you know, I read a book about English martyrs, and in the 14th century, Edward Gregson lost his life to keep his religion." And I said, "Well, that's freaking great for Edward. I'm so proud of him that he died for his convictions so that I can never make that decision for myself ever again." So, you know, it's kind of like, you need to believe whatever you want to believe in. And my belief in faith is any good faith gives you faith in you, because the divine is you. You are divine. The divinity is in you. God is not out in the world waiting to be invited into our lives. God is in our heart being asked to come out, not to come in, but to come out. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you for your share. Maria, would you like to share?
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me have this time to share. I've read this, I think my fourth time through. I kind of jump around, so I don't know if I can really count one of those times. But anyways, this time I heard about the rocking chair. And he said, remember, I sold it today. And it made me remember that my father sold his bathtub Porsche to pay for my brother's hospital bill when he was born. And so our whole life, my dad would joke about how he said, there's my Porsche, and would point at my brother. Because we were living in Redlands at the time and he was working in LA. So it was a real long drive and he loved driving that Porsche. And then sold it and bought a VW Bug. That's what he ended up driving. So it just reminded me of kind of the same thing, sold it. Sorry. But then the second thing, and I think one of the things that this chapter particularly grabbed me for is the speech. And the reason for the speech for me being not only like, I would love to read the whole thing or hear the whole thing, because this is so engaging for me and so just settles at a very deep level with how my beliefs and who I am being. This was like, it just resonated. And I think it's the first time for me, and he could have had other quotes in the book, but this was the first time I feel like I got to hear the inside of Steve. Not that he's not the same on the outside, but to hear somebody's thoughts is to really start to get to know them. And so this is the first time like you really heard the deepness of his soul, his spirit, his love. And that struck me for sure. And this time through, because I am a teacher and I've been teaching little kids since for almost 35 years now, when he said I would change what parents teach their children. And I kind of just stopped there for a moment and I thought about that and all the children that I've taught. And it said then after, so that any teachings that divide and alienate people of different races, religions, countries, and I add to that for myself, viewpoints and thoughts, and countries vanished overnight. And how much I have often in the past wanted to help my children to erase, just to let that go because of the things that they've been taught and how much they understand a lot more than we think they do. Kids do. And I think a lot of the trouble that they come from is fighting what they believe inside and what they've been told and what they see in the world. And I know as a child, that was me. I still cry when I see baby kitties, right? But I was shamed for that as a child. And I've had to overcome that because of what they taught me, because I had to be tough. I was a farm girl. You don't cry over baby kitties. And but I do. I still do. And it's just who I am. So I really related to that part of it too. Not that I blame my parents. My parents are amazing people, truly. I am disabled and I'm learning to walk again after almost 8 years. And yesterday my parents bought me an electric wheelchair. And so now it's like a new lease on life. And my parents did that for me. And so that's who my parents are. So when I say the things about my childhood, it's my perception, of course, of what I heard as a child. But at the same time, when I see the suffering of children because of how they're struggling with what's inside and what they've heard and what they see in the world, that struggle, I really think that line, that it would just vanish overnight. So I'm complete. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your beautiful share and congratulations on your new gift. I know that that
Thank you.
definitely will bring new adventure to you. So
I'm really
congratulations, honey.
excited. I could
Yeah.
cook. I could actually chop on a countertop last night. That was
Oh,
like, it's probably been 8 years
what a
since I've been able to
liberation.
do that. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here as well. Mr. Dave Orton. Good morning, sir. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, especially Nicole for reading, and Amy and Kathleen for reading the back of the book and before you began. So in reading this chapter about me, it's really interesting because there's the story and then there's my story that goes over it. My story over it's not quite the right word, that goes through it, that's weaved through it. So like I never played football. In fact, I thought football was one of the dumbest things anyone could ever do in their lives. Go out and get bashed and get concussions for fun. It just didn't seem like a great idea to me. And I was chosen to attempt to throw a football into a moving vehicle to win a dinner. And I was next to a guy. I'm like, hey, would you teach me how to throw a football? Now, this was last year, so I'm 46 years old and learning how to throw a football for the first time because it just wasn't a thing in our family. That's more true than that it was dumb. It was simply not something that our family did. We were cross-country runners and wrestlers, which is also strange. But anyway, so in 5 minutes, this man taught me how to throw a football, and I won that competition. Took Penny out to a lovely dinner at Texas Roadhouse. Yes. The diabetes diagnosis. So I recall when Penny became diabetic, she's similar to Steve. Her type 1 diabetes onset was much later in her 30s, but still insulin dependent. So it counted as type 1. And it was scary. She lost all this weight. She had to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. She was constantly thirsty and had cotton mouth, like was just couldn't get enough water into her mouth. And I'm like, you might have diabetes. We got really mad. It's like, don't give me that negative talk. We're gonna, like, it's not negative talk. Let's get you taken care of. But so it's been about coming up on 10 years now since she's been diabetic, and it did change. It changes everything, changes her life, changed how things were. When I saw the number 832 blood sugar level, most people would be in a coma at that point. That is a ridiculously high number. And we had our own challenges. I related to Penny like an old person for months after that, because the only smell of insulin I'd ever had in my life was around my ancient great grandparents as they were dying and had diabetes. And so all of a sudden, it was the strangest thing. My beautiful, you've seen my wife, she's gorgeous, right? And all of a sudden I was not attracted to her. And it was the smell of the insulin and the association of that. It took me a while to figure that out. Poor Penny, oh my goodness. There's a line that really resonates with me. Steve didn't prep for the match, and he definitely didn't worry about it. I have spent a lot of my life coasting on talent, coasting on potential. What I mean when I say that is that in school, particularly, school occurred to me as super easy. Like I didn't have to work hard for it. Almost never took homework home, could always do it while the teacher was still talking and not lose the focus of things. And the beauty of that was that life was easy. The cost of that was that the idea of taking a great deal of time to prepare for something was not native to me. And that's had costs, and it's a beautiful thing to recognize and have the opportunity to see that when I prepare, when I am ready to speak, when I am ready and prepared for conversation, it flows so much better. And there are still times when what preparation looks like is not to know what we're doing, it's to show up and do what inspiration says to do. So there's this and thing that is, it's not one size fits all. It really isn't. And I wanted to read this, and Nicole shared this, or you shared a little bit about this line that I love. And this, if I were to take the experience that I've had of the Ultimate Coach Facebook group and the Being Movement, this is what it would be. All people are valuable. When we come together to work for the common good of all people, we have community instead of separation. We have unity instead of divisiveness. We have love instead of hate. And I am that. You are that. We are that in this group. And everybody's allowed to have their own religious, political, and social opinions. And I love you. And I feel your love. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I will have to agree with you. That is my absolute favorite line in this chapter for sure as well. Thank you for your presence, Dave. I really appreciate you being here. Steve Shaw, would you like to share, my friend?
Yeah, actually, from what Dave was sharing, the idea of not preparing and just kind of going as is, and and that has a cost. And I kind of the same way. I've always felt like things will will just happen, or preparation. For some reason, preparation has it doesn't feel right sometimes, and I'll resist it. And just the idea that so the idea of Steve just just going and preparing for that speech. And I used to have a job where I would just keep things in my head and just keep them going, and just kind of work in a flow like that. But that doesn't always work. And so that's what I'm learning right now, the idea of, taking time to prepare. And so I wasn't quite sure what I was going to say, but when you talked about that, Dave, the idea of being, preparing yourself and getting yourself ready and having a world that works for everyone. That resonates with me entirely. The idea of, it should work for everyone instead of just the few or the people who have it, like, okay, we're the ones. No, right. We're all, as Anne-Marie said, the members of the divine being, and that we are every single one of us. And so that's what's for me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Dinah, would you like to share? Hi,
Yeah,
welcome.
thanks, Tanya. Hi. So each week I underline what stands out to me while I'm reading the chapter, and then I go back afterwards and I think, what did I underline, and what was in all of that? And this chapter, I didn't underline anything, but when Kathleen was reading the first chapter of the book, for some reason I starred, who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? And who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? And it occurred to me that for me, these are all one in the same, as in they're all linked. And there's quite a lot of different things in this chapter, but the one thing that resonated with me was I've just spent a week looking after two of my nephews who are 10 and 13. It's been a magical week for me. I absolutely adore my nephews. And the 10-year-old is a little wheeler dealer. And he was telling me how he had a watch that he'd bought from Argos. I don't know if you have Argos in America, but anyway, and he'd had it for a while. It had a scratch on it, but this boy in the year younger than him wanted to buy it off him. And he was really excited because the boy had agreed to buy it for £10 more than he'd bought it. And I just thought, God, you know, the confidence of kids, who's this little wheeler dealer. And we talked about it, and I just left it there because I'm not his parent. It wasn't for me to tell him that he shouldn't do that. We just left it there. And when his mother came back, she was not happy about the ethical element of this, that he was selling it at this profit to a kid who was younger and didn't know that he could actually walk into Argos and buy it for £10 less brand new without a scratch. And this chapter reminded me of that and it's something that always impresses me when I read these chapters about Steve and how different our childhood was, because where Steve had such freedom in some ways, and I recognize it wasn't an easy childhood, but he had such freedom. He didn't have that parental, that parent telling him all the time, you can do this, you can't do this, you can't go here. He had a lot of freedom, and I didn't in the same way. And I was just reflecting on my nephew and how important it is with children to give them enough freedom, whilst at the same time teaching them ethics and so on. And I'm constantly brought back to the chapters where Steve talks about there's still work to do. You know, I forget the words he uses now, but where he realized there's something underneath and there's still work to do. And it takes me back to my childhood every time and reflect on that 10-year-old me. I wasn't a wheeler dealer. I had my own ways of living and expressing and being that was very free, and returning to her and where the work is for me. And that's why those sentences that I underlined at the beginning, I need to keep hearing that and exploring that particular relationship with fear, because there's something that I keep facing into at the moment that I know if I do the work on this, it takes me back to that 10-year-old me. And I don't know if I'm expressing that very clearly, but that's what this chapter reminded me of, was my 10-year-old wheeler dealer nephew, and how important it is not to squash those little things in us that we still have, and how to return to that part of us. Yeah, that's it. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinah. I love your share. Thank you so much. You know, really what I heard in there too is thought creates the process to reality. And so when we have been conditioned by certain thoughts, that often manifests into our reality. And so for any of us that are working with younger children and so forth, to be present with what we're crushing in as a possibility in their reality to create, and listening to their cheerful hearts or their creative processes of creating something for themselves. And yeah, that's just really present for me, that birthing anything, it does take a process. And whether we're manifesting, what are we manifesting? If we are what we consume, whether it be what we're listening to, what we're watching, what we're eating, and that's who we become. Are we disciplined in the sense of creating kindness, creating love, creating, really the future that we want in the world, so it can grow and be of love, of inspiration, of growth in those two senses. no matter where we are in the world. I love how Steve says in the previous chapter, kindness is my religion. And that's true. No matter what religion you become or you're a part of, is it sharing kindness in the world? Is it creating peace in the world? And rather than worrying outside of us more than what's being created inside of us, are we being and birthing kindness to ourselves? Are we creating peace within ourselves with our small chatter? And what is that actually creating in who we are being? So thank you, Dinah. That's what was present for me through listening to everyone sharing, and with yours, it brought me to the point to speak. So thank you. I appreciate you. Miss Andrea, would you like to share with us?
Yes, I would. Thank you. My question was that stood out was, who would I need to be to value the work that I do and know that I make a difference? And so I was listening for that, and I heard things all over the place, like that I'm proud of you. That Amy said to Steve, I'm proud of you. And it was a big deal. I'm proud of you. You're amazing. I'm proud of you. I heard that. And so that championing, and Maria, your question of who was your favorite, what was your favorite teacher? Grade 2, Mrs. Guy, she like was the kindest person to me. And she championed us. She made us feel included, and I just remember her, and so I felt very loved. And so this chapter for me was about believing in just believing in myself again, that I matter, that I have a voice, that I have something to share, and yeah, that I've got a message to share, and I don't need to be afraid to use my voice and share it. And last night, a funny thing happened. We ordered delivery from a Malaysian restaurant called John 316, which is like you might know as like a famous quote. And so a couple of years ago, when I got this given to me by a guy at the he just handed it to me, and it's a tract that says, I must tell you this. So it's like, this is the message which I had to tell you. And it's, the message is John 3:16, which is like, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And John keeps coming up in, I hear a lot of John, like love one another, believe. And so I think that's my message is to champion that everyone is valuable, you matter, you're loved, and you're amazing. And it is a big deal. I'm complete.
Thank you, Andrea. I will affirm, sweetheart, your voice matters. And I'm so grateful that you said yes to be a part of Team TUC and serve our beautiful community and the Ultimate Coach community with your powerful way of being, your powerful way of loving, You are love, sweetheart. So thank you. Thank you for being that. Thank you for sharing you. You belong here. And I love your voice. Even when it's shaky. I love it. Miss Maria.
Yes, thank you so much. I know I already spoke, but I did forget to mention one thing that was just like a big light bulb moment for me. And I got wrapped up in everything else, but that light bulb moment was the speech again, because that's my favorite part. The question they asked him is, if there was one thing you could do to change the world, what would you do? And the last lines he says are, in their place, I would insert the teaching that all people are equal, all people are valuable. When we come together to work for the common good of all people, we have community instead of separation. We have unity instead of divisiveness, and we have love instead of hate. And when I read that, and then I went down and read the very last line in this book, which is Amy saying when she put the phone down after she, congratulated Steve, it was a doubt that came into her mind, which was, that isn't what we believe, right? Is this going to be a big deal? And I went back and I was thinking, you know what? No matter what your religion is, or what your preferred, we are all in community in that love. And I think the doubt, that she has, that, oh, that's not what we believe, we're not spreading our religion or our beliefs. But I think the beautiful thing about Steve is that when he said, is there one thing that you could do to change the world, what would you do? He's already done it. Amy did it when she wrote this book, right? Amy did that when she wrote this book. And then all those things that Steve said that he wanted, that he would have in the world, is what we have. We have that community together here, no matter what you believe, right? And we have that value. And I think that this book has really brought Steve's vision of that for me to light. That vision of, regardless of beliefs, we can come together as people who love and respect and admire people of different beliefs and different thoughts, because it's what I believe. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for sharing again. Miss Cassie. Hello.
Hello. I just want to, no, I'm not going to say that. There's a couple of things that came to view for me, and I noticed when listening to the chapter being read that a big deal has come up a lot in that chapter. Several times I've highlighted a big deal, and what that came through for me, and also in the context of Steve saying that if he'd taken it more seriously around the speaking competition at first, before he was chosen to go through, that if he'd taken it more seriously, if he had actually realized that it was a big deal, that perhaps he would have, won that first stage. Yet he managed to go through. And it just kind of reminded for me of times when, I've had the opportunity ahead of me, but I haven't taken it seriously. I haven't seen it as a big deal, and therefore haven't created the outcome perhaps that I've wanted to. So there's just a little lesson there around how much of a big deal have I created about something. And then it also reminded me on the flip side of that sometimes perhaps it hasn't been a big deal, or I haven't created a big deal, but actually the realization and the treasure there has been seeing that even though perhaps I haven't done the very best that I could have done in those circumstances, actually I'm so much closer to the outcome that I wanted because I tried, because I gave it a go. And that kind of reminder as well, was kind of, was important. It also, what jumped out for me was Steve's determination, his belief, his being, that confidence, that inner confidence that you know, regardless of what the circumstances are that he's gone into, each of these things, knowing that he can do it, knowing that, you know, he can create that. And the times when I've gone in to approach something, and particularly there was a talk that I did, and when I went in with that knowing, without just that, how do I describe it? That pure knowing, without that wanting to get it right, as in needing to cover all my points, but being so present with the audience and knowing that no matter what happened, it was perfect, that actually it's always worked out brilliantly. But those times when I haven't been present, I've perhaps been more present with the, you know, the rubbish in my head, you know, I must remember this or mustn't remember that. That divisiveness, that separation has been created, and I haven't got the results that perhaps I wanted. So that came through. And then the final thing really too that resonated strongly with me was the relationship that he and Amy have. And Amy's, like, the support that she has for him is just incredible. And it just reminded me that really of the support my husband has for me. And sometimes I forget that. And so it was a really nice reminder that, you know, I guess the value there of the partnership. And yeah, it was just a really great reminder for me too. So thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Cassie, for your beautiful and powerful share. You know, what would it look like if we went into something that we wanted to do just hands down confident, just to be who we were, and knowing that we're already equipped to do what we're doing with our presence, and allowing that birthing process to create our reality? You know, so really being present to what is the chatter that we're going into it with, and is it serving us into the reality that we wanting to create? And if we could just kind of just be present with ourselves and in the knowing. And I love what you said, you know, the support that Amy provided for Steve, even when she was questioning, but wait a minute, that isn't our belief. But really what I'm most present with too is how she continues to create him, and how she so bravely enters conversations in creating conversations and creating clarity and creating communication. And where do we cut that off when we're not being accepting, when we're not coming from a place of equal sense of love to give that person space to say what they want to say, but when, you know, we're entering in it with judgment rather than unity. And so I really love your share. Thank you so much. I love all of the shares here today. It's beautiful. Mr. Steve Shaw.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to mention some, but Cassie's share, that was powerful, because I think that what happens to me in regard preparation, because I don't know when I'm ever fully prepared. So I think that's what I always, you know, of like, oh my God, am I ready? Is this happening? But to have that knowingness of just being, you know, being ready. Like I just an example of when I was trying to get my pass my Series 6 exam, and it's in financial services to market mutual funds, but I prepared so much, and I went in there just not having that knowing. And funny, when I took the test and then I finished it and I pressed the button, and then the testing center went round and round, and all of a sudden it came out with saying 80 something, right? Passing was 70. I'm like, what was that? I didn't, and because my being was sensed that I wasn't ready for it, but yet, and I couldn't believe that I actually had passed till actually I saw at the end he passed. And it was like, I was overcome, literally. And I called my wife and I said, I did it. And she was, why aren't you happy? Why aren't you excited? and I didn't know. It was just this sense and just hearing that, because I didn't coming there with that sense of like, okay, I've done it and I'm good and whatever happens. And it was just overcome with the pressure. So that's, this sense of knowing is really powerful. So Cassie, thank you for sharing that. What I did want to say is also, Dave was one of those guys that always jealous of the guy who could do homework before he left school. Right. I remember this kid's name was Clay, and I think it was my 4th grade class. He was like always working hard at the end, and I was like, oh my God, he never left with any books. I was like, wow, I'd love to be like Clay, So that's I just wanted to share that, Dave. Good for you that you're able to do that. And I did check my blood glucose level, and that was an 81. So an 832 that's crazy. Anyway, I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'd love to bring it back around to Dinah. Dinah, would you like to share?
Thanks. It's just a quick one that Cassie and Steve made me think about. And that's like, when we step out of our own way, then we can create those miracles. That we're capable of so much more than we allow ourselves to be. And actually, when we step out of our way and do that, it feels so much better. So why don't we do it all the time? Yeah, that was all.
Thank you, Dinah. Miss Farah, I see your hand up.
And I have a quick one as well. Looking at the time, there's one sentence that resonated because of what's present this week for me. And it's the one which says, Steve took Stephanie with him to his class. He became known as the business guy with the baby. And I've been doing a lot of work on bias, unconscious bias, and I was doing a talk on the power of diversity and inclusion and uncovering bias. And I was thinking about a time when I had, forget the opposite sex, when I had my baby. I mean, I just didn't even think that I could do things like this, So at that time in my life stopped. And I didn't go back to, it was all about parenting and bringing up the child and managing those first years, and didn't even think of doing what he did. So I'm reading that, and it's just opening my mind first about, if I had to have another baby, I would probably actually easily, do this, be this woman with the baby everywhere. But just looking at what he did so long ago, I mean, it just points out to, what an outlier he was, and how he was, choosing to be so, these actions really make me see Steve differently and see the possibilities. So I wanted to share that. And last thing is this question that he says that he was thinking of that question all his life. And it made me pause, and I probably will think about that is, what's the question that is on my mind? Not necessarily all my life, but over this decade, there was a question which was, what's the legacy that I'm leaving behind? And that's a question that, a lot of my actions have been around that. And I probably will stay with that. Is there a deeper question that I had that will continue to keep me curious about the kind of life I want to have or the way I want to serve? So those are two things that stood out when we read it this time.
Farah, thank you so much for raising your hand to share. I love your share. And what it really brought for me up is, what is feeling like it's being birthed inside of you since you were younger? And when have we ever put pressure on ourselves, maybe thinking that we should have already birthed that we should have already accomplished that we should, but that's still inside of us, the question we still ponder. And today, especially, it's my daughter's 20th birthday today. And I remember when she was my first child, and according to the doctors, she was 2 days late. And so when have we ever told ourselves that we're like late from whatever we're really birthing inside. And I kind of got desperate to, like, she had to come out. And so the night before, I was like running around the block, like with my big old belly, just kind of running and running around the block. And what wound up happening is I put her under stress. When my water actually broke, I had created an environment for her that was so stressed, and it put both of our lives in danger. And so who said that she was like what would actually make it to where she's late? Maybe her birthing process just had its own natural process. And so that's just really what's present for me is, what if the question that we ponder inside is birthing inside of us and it has its own natural process, but that the ultimate coach is really bringing us to this place of awareness and of presence to create the environment that would serve us into that birth, into that creation. And there's no need for a rush. It will have its natural unfolding as long as we choose to be loving kindness to ourselves in that birthing process. So I just really am so grateful for everyone's shares. Just so beautiful. And I'd love to come back around to Nikki to see if there's anything present to her before we go into our closing announcements. Nikki, is there anything else you'd like to share today?
Just listening to everyone, first and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me. It was truly an honor to be here and to listen to everyone sharing so much of themselves, sharing your soul, your thoughts, and listening to so many people trying to manifest those things within us. And the last thing that Tanya said, I think definitely resonated tremendously in the sense of us wanting to, I always say fast track and control what we think our path in life should be instead of trusting in the natural progression of it and wanting things to happen. I think so many times on our time and not necessarily in the time in which it's meant to happen. And, for me, not only for myself, for my children, I think it's just, we're human and we watch other people's lives unfold. We watch other people's progressions we watch other people, their accomplishments. And we tend to think I am late. Why I do this, I do that. I put in 200%, or maybe I don't put in 200%. I think we are many times our biggest, or at least I can speak for myself, right? About myself. I'm my own biggest critic in the things that I feel that I can and I can't accomplish. And I love the fact that throughout this book, I think each and every one of us can think of a time that there were those challenges in our life and where things didn't exactly go our way. And Steve he has these consistently, but it's like he doesn't let it get him down. I love the fact of watching what many would take as a downfall, or for some of us that would just completely take us down. And he relishes in it and he uses it to become and turns it into something great. He turns it into this great speech. He turns it to this great action that he teaches and shows others. And, it's kind of funny because when I went back and I listened again, when I listened and I read and I took in everything he said and I look at his beginning, his mother's faith was not the same. His mother's faith was not the same as his dad's. His dad was Baptist. So it's so many things that I looked into of where his beginning, where he started, and where he ended up in the end. And it still, once again, just takes me back to, like I said, the partnership, the support. And it's what's great about this team, this group, is that each and every one of you are each other's supporters. And as I watch the comments that come in, it warms my heart. And I love it because you all have like minds and spirits. You can tell the support is there to help each and every one of you have faith and belief in what those next steps may be for your lives and what this book will mean and what it will allow you to manifest into your future. And I'm so super excited, so thankful that you guys allowed me to be here today. Each and every one of you are lovely. And I hope to be here again. And as I continue to read, and each and every one of us, I hope that you get out of it everything that your little heart's desire, and it helps each and every one of you continue to be the best version of yourselves. And I can see for all of you that your hearts are pure, and I love it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nicole. Again, thank you so much for saying yes. Your heart is just gold to me. And thank you for always being a beautiful support system for me for over 3 decades. And I just love, love, love what you are pouring into your children. You are a fabulous, incredible mama.
Thank
And
you.
you're just
Ditto.
amazing.
Ditto.
Gonna make me get emotional. So thank you. Thank you for who you be, truly.
Thank you.
Miss Farah, did you have your hand up again, sweetie? I wanted to no. Okay. All right. So at this time, we'll move on into the after party, which what we'll do then is we turn off all recording for a little bit of deeper sharing if there's anything present for someone that you'd like to share off cameras. But before I do that, I'd really like to, again, thank our first 2 readers. Thank you, Amy, for reading the back of the book. And thank you, Kathleen, for reading the first 2 pages of the book. And thank you for all of the really powerful and incredible shares. Truly, there were so many points that were brought up throughout this chapter that then through your shares allowed me to elaborate my own feelings within. So I just really honor your presence and being here and your willingness to grow with each of us, grow your being with each of us. And our next chapter reading will be on October 25th, and it will be chapter 11, From Procter & Gamble to Xerox. And our special guest reader is actually on the call, and it will be Mr. Steve Shaw. So thank you, Steve, for saying yes to our upcoming chapter as well. I would like to announce our upcoming 2-year anniversary for the Ultimate Experience in Scottsdale, Arizona, being put on by Judy Thurston and her team on January 26th and 27th. And if you have not gotten your tickets yet and you're interested in more information, please just type yes in the chat and we'll make sure we get you whatever information you would like. And just for the record, the Ultimate Experience in Arizona, the first one, changed my life. It empowered me tremendously. It gave me inspiration to use my voice. And I am super, super grateful that Judy Thurston followed through on that vision that she had for the first Ultimate Experience, which has then birthed the Ultimate Experience in London, and it birthed the Ultimate Experience in India, and it is also birthing another Ultimate Experience called 2B24, and that is on May 25th and May 26th in Birmingham. And if you'd like more information on that, just type yes in the chat and we'll make sure that we do get that to you as well. And in case you don't know, the Ultimate Coach group has really created multiple sources of resources for each of us to grow our being. And that is through the Ultimate Coach YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked it out, I really encourage you to. There are some phenomenal speeches and just really, really, really great resources there for each of us to tap into. We also have the Ultimate Coach podcast, who is run by Ipek Williamson and Meredith Bell and Philip Bartu. The 3 of them do a phenomenal job on their interviews with various people that have read the Ultimate Coach and have been empowered through this powerful book. And we also have the Ultimate Coach Instagram ran by Mr. Dave Orton and Heather Quick. So definitely check that out. They also have some great interviews going on there. We have the Ultimate Coach LinkedIn group to tap into as well if you are on LinkedIn. And we also have the Ultimate Coach Weekly Being Digest newsletter. And so if you do not get that Ultimate Coach Being Digest newsletter through your email and you are interested in that, please type yes in the chat, newsletter, and we'll make sure that we give you the access to be able to get on that newsletter. And what that does is it just gives you updates on things that are going on in the community. So that way you feel fully on board, and you also have the community connection. Because, you know, that is something that Nikki said is what we're creating here within our Ultimate Coach group is truly a powerful connection in support, in loving support. We are creating a village to really empower each of us to tap into what is being birthed inside of us and to take action in those creations. So again, I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And if this is now your time where you say, see you soon or see you next time, want to invite everybody to, you can go ahead and take yourselves off of mute. And if you will be staying for the after party, which was renamed last time as Afterglow, because the person said, you know, this after party is really Afterglow. Wow, everyone that comes or walks away from here is glowing from the deep sharing and the deep insights that were created. So again, I invite you to it, but if you can't, no worries and no pressure. I'll see you next time. So thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wednesday.
Thank you so
much.
much. Bye, guys.
Well,
Bye,
for that
everybody.
info,
I
Amy.
know
Good
Thanks,
week.
Amy, for reading
See you
the
next
book.
See you in the
Loved
afterglow.
it.
Bye.
Wow.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.